All right, all right. This is part two. Maybe there will be a part three, a part four. Who knows? But this week here, we're really focusing on just having the structure, correct structure when it comes to having the proper education. As far as a realtor goes, again, there's an agent and then there's a realtor, right? And then there are those, as in any profession, as in any field, those that are diligent to take notes, diligent to understand, and those that also ridicule the people that do pay attention. It started even in school when there were kids. There were kids that made fun of the students that paid attention and did well in the class and followed the rules. And even though in school they were kind of ridiculed for that, now as adults, as growing individuals and professionals, those same people that took notes and that were diligent in class are now the ones that you are looking to and relying upon to do business. Okay, so this is the reason why I'm doing this. Yes, I'm going through this continuing education course as part of my licensure here in the state of Illinois to be a professional real estate agent, but at the same time, it is necessary for me to also, take this in. It's been known, and as a matter of fact, the reason why I'm doing this video also is because they can also show, if you're paying attention. They've said that when you're learning things, it's best also to not only hear it, but teach it. When you teach it and you write it and you teach it, especially, it really does solidify and stick in your mind more. Okay, so let me just pick up where we left off. If you watched part one already, thank you for doing that. We were cut off a little bit because we are, aware of others here in the office. I want to make sure that I'm not here, speaking out loud when there's folks trying to do their business here in the office. Okay, and if not, if we need to pick it up another time, then we will do so. Okay, but in the meantime, let's just pick it up where we left off. Okay, we're talking here about the code of ethics here with realtors and the fact that even though NAR, right, National Association of Realtors, if you are a realtor, okay, you are a member of this board, right? This brand, not brand, but association. You have a higher standard than the average agent out there. Yeah, you can get your licensure in the state here in the state of Illinois. You can have your licensure, of course, but to be a realtor, you're signing up not just for MLS access, but you're signing up for having that higher standard that is put upon you. And all should follow this, but only those that are realtors are held to that higher standard. And it doesn't mean that, those things that you do that, the ethics, if you break one of the ethics, you're going to go to jail for that. No, because sometimes laws take time to evolve or to become law, right? There are things that the society looks at and says, hey, that's a law, and if you break it, then now you will be punished, right? But ethics are kind of like the soul of the law, if that makes sense. Okay, so again, let me just see if this works here. All right, so again, ethics are sort of like the soul of the law. The thing that the law is the body, and the ethics are what embody it. It's what gives it that character. So there are things that ethics do that are good for the community, right? The ethics are there, they're present, they're followed because there's a good thing that wants to come from it. And we also don't do things that harm others because, again, there's ethics. And when that becomes a law, then there you go. If it's violated, then of course you're going to see that there are repercussions to this. Okay, so we hold ourselves to a higher standard because we are realtors, and we want to make sure that our fiduciary duties to our clients are being met. All right, so here we go. I'm just taking the course. Just follow along with me. This is for my own continuing education to stay and keep my licensure, of course. But also at the same time, the nature of me is to be a teacher. So I want to not only read this, but also be able to teach it. All right, so we're talking about NAR, right? National Association of Realtors, setting the standard. But all real estate professionals here, whether members or not, do play a role in lifting it. All right. Now, it says here that, again, the Consumer Federation of America, a consumer watchdog, found that despite more education from folks and disclosure requirements, 55% of consumers still struggle to understand agency relationships. So there's a disconnect there, with consumers understanding agency relationships. Even me, myself, with my folders, like I have some here again in my office, I have my folders, right? And this is the folder that I use when it comes to sellers, right? But let me see if I could have, I do have one here. Let me stop the camera for a little bit. All right, so for example, here, I have a folder. It's my brokerage, right? On Path Realty. And in this folder, I have several items, right? And obviously I have the agreements, I have some questionnaires, I have the required pamphlets. radon testing guidelines. There's protect your family from lead in the home and other necessary things. But there's also a portion here that outlines what agency relationships are. So people, need to understand that, and I make sure to include that in my paperwork when it comes to having folks understand it. Okay, understand agency relationships. Now, 65% of those that were polled by the Consumer Federation of America believe that agents are always obligated to represent their interests. So, in a world where consumers often turn to the internet, some topics like agency relationships remain unclear, of course. Okay, so agency relationships, being told, being aware, is something that consumers are saying they don't understand it. Okay, and the fact that they don't understand agency relationship puts the consumer at risk of being taken advantage of by unscrupulous agents. Okay, unscrupulous agents, that word means, let me see if I could have Google search this up real quick here. All right, let's see. Unscrupulous, this is part of my understanding too, right? I mean, it's not that I don't understand what unscrupulous means, I do, but it's kind of like, this is where I like to dive deeper, right? This is the value of this video too, is that if you're watching this and you read the same thing, unscrupulous agents, you think, okay, unscrupulous, that kind of means like conniving, right? Like but it says here, someone who acts dishonestly or unfairly, lacking moral principles or conscience to gain an advantage, like unethical. Of course, we're talking about ethics, and it's the opposite of ethical. So lack of understanding on the part of consumers makes them vulnerable to being taken advantage of by dishonest agents. Okay, let's just say it like that. So it's essential for ethical licensees to apply the ethics, not just in real estate practice, but also in their everyday interactions. Okay, so how does the code and the law work together? Okay, the code and the law, how can they work together? All right, so as per the code, Ethics and Arbitration Manual, the relation of the code to the law is twofold. First, the code defines those duties and obligations required in the public interest, which are beyond the capacity or power of the law to mandate. And second, the code supports the law by requiring a higher sensitivity to the duties and obligations which it imposes. So certain states like California, they formally recognize the code of ethics. California allows the Department of Real Estate to discipline realtors who violate the code. Interesting. That California allows the department that they have there of real estate to discipline realtors. Moreover, consumers harmed by a realtor can sue, okay, claiming the licensee's ethical breach harmed them, right? So this collaboration between code of ethics and law assures professionalism and elevated standards of practice. So again, here we're just talking about how the law and the code, okay, how the law and the code work together, how they work together seamlessly here. So when that happens, that's good, because again, extra accountability. Let me kind of tell you a little story here. So this past Saturday, again, this is just because of the fact that here, this example in the book or in the course was talking about accountability, even from a higher power of the state of California in that case. But like I said, this past Saturday, I had an open house, right? Hence, I have the folders here ready to go. And I love that my seller clients disclosed to me that they are having cameras throughout the house. I loved it, right? Because that, in a sense, put me on stage, like Michael Jordan, going in front of the whole United Center, the Madison Square Garden, and performing in front of all those people. It's like it gives you extra onus. Anyway, so the fact that I was being watched gave me more, power, you could say, or more just willingness to outshine, right? Outsell, be honest, and point out everything that my seller wanted that to be done, right? Because I know they were going to watch the video and judge me based on my performance. So in the same way here, when it comes to code of ethics and when it comes to the law, to getting together, right? The more accountability there is, the more that you'll be able to, enforce this, which is fine. I'm not against that, right? I'm all for more, supervision. If I had, again, this is why we're doing a live stream now, because at any given moment, someone in the public can turn it on and see what I'm saying. And even if it's not live, after it's posted, you'll be able to see what I'm saying and back it up, right? Say, was Louis correct? Was he correct? So again, why am I putting myself out here? Because more exposure, more surveillance, you could say in this case, is an environment conducive to the highest standards. Let's just say it that way. All right. The next section here is going to say court decisions cite the code. Sometimes the courts refer to the code of ethics. So there's an example of Borden versus West Michigan Lakeshore Association of Realtors. A licensee sued WMLAR after facing sanctions, hoping that court would overturn the discipline. However, the court supported the West Michigan Lakeshore Association of Realtors, explaining that it didn't have the authority to do that. Okay, or resolve the matter. Court of Ethics clearly stated that the association had the power to decide on matters related to its members. All right. So since the licensee voluntarily joined and agreed to follow the code, the court ruled in favor of WMLAR, stating that licensee had no case. We've included a copy in case you need to see that. Okay. So is it true of the code? Select whether each statement. So here we are just in a quiz right here. So let me just kind of read this. And then once we get everything going, then we'll go ahead and kind of just solidify. It's just a reminder of things. Okay. Don't be afraid of quizzes. Don't be afraid of tests. Those are just basically to see, if you are really understanding. All right. So realtors may only be disciplined if they violate the code of ethics. They are immune to other changes. I would say false. Let's just keep going. Courts rarely cite the code of ethics in their decisions. Rarely? I would say, that's a good one, actually. Rarely, but they do, but is it rarely or common, right? So let's just see what that says. It's important for all licensees, whether or not they're realtors, to raise the bar. Of course, yes, true. So let's see what it said. All of them are correct, all right? So once again, just going here. Let's see, a quick review. Realtors may only be disciplined if they violate the code of ethics. They are immune to other charges. That is not true. Courts rarely cite the code of ethics, and though they commonly cite the code of ethics in their decisions, okay, in courts. And it's important for all licensees, whether or not they are realtors, to raise the bar on ethical practice. Absolutely. So if you're a professional watching this, raise the bar, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and talk next here. Again, going along here, lesson number 4. Okay, so here we go. I'll do this for you, right? Lesson 4. Boom, there you go. Lesson 4. Competence in real estate practice. Being competent in real estate means having the necessary knowledge and skills for your practice. Having the necessary knowledge. So let's just talk about that, right? Having necessary knowledge. Now, I like to say that real estate, is, like college. You're going to college, you're learning as much as you can. It's not enough that 65-hour course, pre-licensing, or whatever your state has, to just have enough and that's it. Once you complete it, you're 100% there. No, there's a lot of cutting teeth. There's a lot of, hitting the ground running, falling, getting scratches, bruises, learning lessons. All these things still go on and on. There's a lot of things that need to be learned, taught, best practices, etc. Learning systems, learning how to run a business, learning how to generate leads, how to maintain the back office, how to hire, fire, etc. Right? So there's a lot of things that you need to be competent in, okay? The preamble here emphasizes realtors' commitment to preparing themselves for real estate work. Competency involves staying within your licensee's scope, understanding rules and regulations, and developing expertise in specialty areas, such as if you want to do land sales, commercial real estate, property management, or geographic locations. In essence, it means having enough knowledge and skill in that particular area that you're trying to do, that you can basically carry along the transaction for the benefit of someone. Again, people are trusting you. Clients are trusting you. And if you're not competent in this, or don't know how to get the necessary help to guide you, then again, is it ethical what you're doing? Again, I could say, hey, I'm going to perform brain surgery on you, and I have all the best intentions of the world, and I don't want to hurt you. But if I don't know what I'm doing, is that ethical? If I say I'm going to drive the semi-trailer and I have every intention to bring that load over here, let me go ahead and do this again. Let me save this. There's another important point here, is that if I can be the best meaning person, right? I have the best intentions, but if I don't have competence in that, even though my intentions are good and pure, if I don't know what I'm doing, is that ethical? Is that right? Am I doing good to you? Is that how I want to be treated, right? Of course not. I mentioned brain surgery. I mentioned if you're driving a 40,000-pound vehicle or more, and if I really do want to get that work done, but I don't have competence in it, then am I really doing a good thing by traveling with that rig down the highway? And I don't know how to brake, let's say, right? So competency is what we're talking about here, okay? Understanding rules and regulations and developing expertise in specialty areas. So in essence, it means having enough knowledge and skills. Attaining competency is crucial for providing professional service and protecting clients' best interest. I'm telling you. And even now, even though I've been doing this already, coming up, completing 5 years, almost 6 years in real estate, is that I still am eager to learn. I'm hungry for knowledge, and I'm hungry to learn the best practices. I'm over here looking at my bag, right? my briefcase, and I take this home with me, and I still have books just like this. Investing in real estate. I still have books just like this where I am, talking about X, Y, Z, and I'm bringing up these materials because I want to have even more competency, and learning about other best practices. It always is the case here with me. Okay, so it's an ethical obligation to strive for excellence in your work. So again, what it's saying here is that it is again an ethical obligation to do this. So let me say it one more time, right? It is an ethical obligation for you to exceed. So for me to read books like this, even though I know about investing, but really, can you tell me this is a thick book, right? Can you tell me everything that's in these books, in these pages? There's appraisal reports here. There's how to make business as far as investing in real estate, right? Can I give good, proper counsel and competence to lead an investor in the transaction if I don't know a lot of these things? Of course not, right? So ethics have to do with knowledge, okay? And always aspire to do so. So every time I pick up a book, I'm being ethical in a sense, right? Take it to the water here. And strive for excellence in your work. It's not enough to just say, all right, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. It's not enough to say, I already know this stuff. I've done it many times. For me, it's a regular occurrence when I am searching, for the highest practices, and I'm always reading books, or I'm always examining my practices. I'm always talking about my systems. I'm always talking about how I can improve. Even now, I'm wanting, even though many years into this, I'm still wanting to sharpen my skills as being a great buyer agent, representing my sellers in ways in which I can better represent, and understanding everything, right? There's so many things that I always aspire to sharpen more and more and more. Why? Because as we know, even right now with the storms passing by and the rain coming, that rain's going to cause the grass to grow, right? And with normal wear and tear of not only life and properties, the mental also has wear and tear, right? You can learn all the stuff, and even in this course of continuing education, you could get all 100%. But I'm telling you this: with time, you start to forget things, and with the wear and tear of the deals, of time, of XYZ, and the emotional baggage that comes with dealing with real estate and individuals in the world, you tend to forget things, right? So sharpen and maintain that education. Okay, that's what I'm saying. All right, real world scenario involving competency. So if you think your past actions won't come back to haunt you, think again. Consider this fictional scenario based on a real life case. So here we go. We're going to get into a little story here. Let's see what we can learn from this story. Okay, so here we're gonna go ahead and talk about it. Right here is a little story time. Story. All right, let's go with the story. I don't know if that helps or not, but 5 years ago, Sasha, her broker. Sorry, here you go. A couple people. Sasha, her broker, and another agent were sued. Okay, let me see if I could draw this for you. Sasha, her agent, and another agent were sued. Okay, boom, 3 people. At that time, the jury found her liable for fraudulent misrepresentation. The state's real estate commission suspended her license for a whole year. The whole experience left a bad taste in Sasha's mouth, so she let her license lapse after her suspension was lifted. Fast forward 5 years, and Sasha reapplied for a real estate license. To her surprise, the application was denied. Sasha appealed the decision, requesting a rehearing by the commission. At the hearing, a commissioner brought up the lawsuit from 5 years before. Sasha responded by saying that she had no regrets about her previous actions. The jurors didn't have real estate experience, so they couldn't grasp the nuances of her actions, and the attorney representing her at the time was subpar. The commissioners determined that it was likely that, due to her lack of insight into her previous conduct seriousness, Sasha would repeat that very conduct. So here's a situation, right, where they were, there was some negligence done on her part, and she was sued, and her license was suspended for a year, and she neglected to keep it up, right? But 5 years later, a long time later, she was trying to get her license once again, and at the board they brought that up, and it looked like, according to this, right, it's fictional story, that she didn't care for whatever that case was, the situation. So she didn't learn a lesson, is basically what they're saying. So because of that lack of contrition and the lack of understanding the seriousness of the matter, they said, you know what, she might do it again, right? And so overall, she demonstrated a failure to appreciate a licensee's responsibility. Sasha's application was again denied based on several violations, including incompetence, gross negligence, and failure to maintain a record of competency. So just understand that this stuff matters, right? Which of the following best demonstrates competency in real estate? Obtaining a real estate license in more than one state, does that show competence? Let's find out. Right? Possessing sufficient knowledge, skill, and ability in areas you practice. I like that one so far. Advertising oneself as an expert in all things related to real estate. Nah, you know what? Advertising yourself, okay? It's another thing too here, is advertising yourself and telling the whole world, yes, I can do this. Yes, I can sell that. Yes, I am good with land. Yes, I'm good with investors. Yes, I can do $1 million properties. It's one thing to go on social media, on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even here, yes, even myself on YouTube, and say, yes, I can do this, right? Call me, I'll take care of this. That's one thing, that's advertising, but it's not really demonstrating your skills, not really being tried and true. Okay, I'm not going to do any advertising today. You can, that's why I'm blocking the phone number here as well, because it's not about advertising. It's just about, me, hanging out with you, basically. I'm doing this continuing education, and hopefully you gleaned from this video that, you're learning as much as you can. Anyway, so it's not enough to just advertise yourself as competent. That's not enough. Or how about you sell the highest properties in the area, selling the highest price? Is that competency? The answer is no, right? So here we go. Yes, it is possession. Possessing sufficient knowledge, skill, and ability. Okay, licensees must apply themselves with diligence to attaining competence in the areas in which they practice real estate. You're hearing some thunder right now. It's a thunderstorm going on at the moment, and we're gonna keep on learning. Okay, let's keep going here. All right. Again, we're taking continuing education right now, and so I think it's important for me to share this. And let's just kind of review some of the things, right? So this is just a quick little review. All right, so ethics are the principles that govern group behavior and are the basis of the laws, okay? Government makes laws to safeguard the welfare of its citizens. Again, government makes laws. We talked about ethics being like the soul of the law. The law is the embodiment of ethics, and it's agreed upon. And now that there's a law, there's ability to punish any infractions, any things that violate the law, right? That break the law, okay? No, you're not going to go to jail for breaking ethics because it's not a law, but because of the fact, right? So you could say, like, for example, the law goes this far. Let me write it down here. So the law goes this far, but ethics go even further. So here we go. Ethics go even further, right? So are you going to go to jail for breaking the law here? I mean, the breaking ethics? Of course not. That's not law yet. But if you do break something in this area, of course you would, because this is law. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, keep it going. Morals are dependent upon an individual's conscience and values shaped by personal beliefs. They may be cultural or religious beliefs. Ideally, both laws and ethics guide the real estate's behavior, okay? Ideally, both should govern. I know it's a mess here, but I'm telling you, there's two in here, okay? Ideal, that's the ideal situation. NER and other groups have made it their mission to improve public perception of the real estate industry. While most transactions close without complaints, it does XYZ. Okay, let's see here. All right, let me see. All right, very good, very good. Let's see, pop out dashboard. Cool. What is this supposed to be? Oh, didn't know you could do that. Let me try something here real quick. I know it's a live stream, but we're going to do something. Yeah. Oh, look at this. All right. I'm learning, right? We're growing in competence. All right. I'm going to show you here. All right. There it is. Boom. There it is. I love it. Love it. All right. So, and you're basically reading here my screen of the things, right? So ethical behavior upholds the reputation of the real estate profession. National Association of Realtors guidelines require listing agents to provide written acknowledgement. All these things that we covered already here. I'm not going to read them all at the moment here. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and take the exam real quick here. So let me go back to the main. Stop sharing the screen. All right. I like that. That was good. Okay. I'm not a big, at least not yet, proponent of doing live streams, but I love them. Right. I've done them before. You look at my YouTube channel. You'll see that going on constantly. All right. So there's 8 questions. According to the ethics preamble, realtors can take no safer guide than that which has been handed down through the centuries and embodied in the Golden Rule. And the NER Code of Ethics preamble puts forth, let me put this in the middle a little bit here. All right. Puts forth the concept that the real estate industry is important and realtors share their fellow realtors a common what? Duty to uphold its integrity and honor the code of ethics. Not to compete aggressively, not responsibility to keep it profitable, no. Responsibility to provide affordable housing. All right, further clarify that the NAR Code of Ethics and use examples to support local boards during hearings and ethics violations. All right. So I'm going to click on that one. All right, and what do personal beliefs such as religious ones have the greatest effect? Personal beliefs on ethics. I would say ethics because it's about ethics. Morals are fine, but again, these are ethics that we're talking about here in this particular one. Ideally, what guides real estate licensees' behavior? What guides their behavior? Ideally, remember, we spoke about this, like this is ideal. It would be ideal if they followed, again, here it is, like in my notes, right? Ethics and the law, all right? So here it is. That's one of the answers here, all right? And Marsha holds an ethics refresher training every spring at her brokerage. She knows that ethics are tricky to navigate, especially considering that, what? Many real estate professionals are inexperienced, only having their license for a few years. Consumers have a reputation for taking advantage of agents. No. All right, so we'll leave it with that one. That there are many folks that are, part-time or don't really take into account all these things. All right, with a few exceptions, there's usually no external punishment for violating which of the following ethics. All right, which of the following ethics-related statements is true? There's four statements. 3 of them are false, 1 is true. So let me just read each one. Only realtors are required to be ethical in their real estate practice. Only the most seasoned real estate agents are equipped to handle ethical dilemmas. I don't like that one too much. Real estate transactions often present ethical predicaments due to their financial risk and inherent complexity. That's true. Which of the following ethics-related statements is true? Real estate transactions often read it again. Real estate transactions often present ethical predicaments due to their financial risk and inherent complexity. The government real estate agency is the only entity with authority to evaluate. No. So I'm torn between the first one. Only realtors are required to be ethical in their real estate practice. Or real estate transactions often present ethical predicaments. So I'll just leave it at that one. All right, very good. Keep it going. All right, great. We passed it. Great stuff. All right, so let's kind of review a couple things here. So the case interpretations further clarify the NAR Code of Ethics and use examples to support local boards during hearings. And what do personal beliefs such as religion have the greatest effect? It's morals. All right, great. Now let's go to the next unit, number 3, which is duties to clients and customers. All right, so now we're starting another unit. Unit 3, boom. Unit 3, all right, duties to clients and customers. All right, so we spoke about the unit 2 was about the law and ethics, about the history, about legal ramifications of breaking the law, but ethics, go to jail for that, right? And it's good practice to use both ethics and the law and guiding because of the complexity of the real estate transaction and the risks involved, and then the fact that agents are not trusted all the way because everyone is different, right? Like I said, and even when they take courses like this, they can still forget about it the next day and go back to what they were doing, right? So it takes not only enough to just, and I'm telling you right there as well, and it's getting a little bit windy outside, but it's not enough to just take a course or to watch a video, because tomorrow when you turn the lights and you do your business once again, are you going to keep this in mind, right? So that's why it's important to have these ethics and whatnot. And of course, another key thing that we learned in the previous unit was the fact that, keeping yourself sharp with not only continuing education like this one is, but also having, resources and helping yourself. I mean, taking training, taking courses constantly to better sharpen your skills, okay? Having that competence. So now in the words of, I guess we're talking about competence, let's get into unit number 3, okay? Now, this is duties to clients and customers. Duties to clients and customers. So no matter who you are, let me start reading here. This is the introduction. Whether a seasoned or freshly minted real estate licensee, the very act of commerce oftentimes presents an ethical decision that depends on your interpretation and subsequent action. So this is a quote from someone named Ernest Brahma. He says, a reputation for 1,000 years may depend upon the conduct of a single moment. Okay? So he's saying here, again, in the quote from Ernest Brahma, that in just a single moment, whatever you do could have long-term repercussions, right? A reputation for 1,000 years could depend on how you conducted yourself in a single moment of time. So with this quote in mind, let's walk through some ethical dilemmas involving clients and customers that you may encounter during your own moments as a real estate licensee, okay? So recall the ethical duties realtors owe to clients and customers, identify common ethical violations concerning them, and determine best practices to employ. Again, the objective of this lesson that continue here in this unit are to recall ethical duties that realtors owe to clients and customers. And obviously, we're going to also look to see common violations, okay? So let's get into it, right? Let's get into this. All right. So introducing the COE's Article 1, okay? So putting your client's interests first is paramount in any transaction, okay? So reminder, again, I know that we're about doing deals, and I'm looking at my notebook over here, and I see all the transactions that I'm working at the moment, right? And you also know that you have to be thinking about your client's best interest. Let me go ahead here and drink a little bit of water. Yeah. In fact, it says here, Article 1 of the NAR Code, along with 16 standards of practice, is designed to further protect and promote your client's interest. This is your primary obligation to your clients. Again, they put it in bold. Let me show you what it says here. They're putting it in bold. All right, that matters. So it says here, putting your clients in primary obligation to your clients. Okay, primary obligation. All right, so it says when representing a buyer, seller, landlord, or tenant, anyone, right? As an agent, realtors pledge themselves to protect and promote the interests of their client. This obligation to the client is primary, but it does not relieve realtors' obligation to treat all parties honestly. Okay, so when serving a buyer, landlord, or tenant, anyone else in a non-agency capacity, realtors remain obligated to treat all parties fairly and honestly. Okay, so this is another lesson here about treating all parties fairly and honestly. Yes, your client has number one priority, in a sense, yes, where you have the fiduciary duty, where you're serving them, etc. But you also have an obligation to be professional to the other side. And what better timing can this be even right now? I find myself in a escrow period in a contract to sell a property that I represent my seller. And I'm also working with an unrepresented buyer in the same transaction. So no, I don't represent the buyer in this case, and I do represent the seller. So I'm always looking to my seller's best interest. But at the same time, I'm not going to be rude. I'm not going to withhold any important material fact from the buyer, or to cooperate with any questions they have, etc. Right? So we're about making sure that we have a code of ethics that is supporting being professional throughout. Okay. So standards of practice 1 of 2, right? So practice 1 of 2 stresses that the duties outlined in the code cover all activities and transactions, including those conducted electronically. It also defines terms, including these, right? So right now we're going to go through some terms of, some terminology. So the glossary, right? The index. Let's talk about it, right? Who's a client? Who's a customer? Who's a prospect? Who's an agent? And who's a broker? So who's a client, right? A client is a person with whom, or entity, it could be a LLC, right? A company, but with whom a realtor or realtor's firm has an agency or a legally recognized non-agency relationship. All right. So again, has an agency or legally recognized non-agency relationship. So that's a client that would, sign the paperwork, and you would be obligated contractually to, service that particular, position or job. Customer, right? Who's a customer, right? We got a customer here. A customer is a party to real estate transaction. Let me go ahead and actually just, let me see. Yeah, let me see if I can share that screen right there. Let me share the screen again. Boom. Got it? Great. So a customer is a party to a real estate transaction who receives information, receives services or benefits, but has no contractual relationship with a realtor. Okay, that's exactly what I'm defining here. All right. So who's a prospect? A prospect is a purchaser, seller, tenant, or landlord who is not subject to a representation relationship with a realtor. Okay, so it's a prospect. Okay, it could be somebody that calls you, right? It could be somebody that gives you a call and says, "Hey, Louis, I have a question about this," right? Or I'm a tenant, I'm a landlord, right? So I'm a prospect. That's what it is. Someone that's just not yet having a transaction. You don't have an obligation legally, contractually to service them. Okay, who's an agent? A real estate licensee. Could be brokers, associate, acting in an agency relationship. And a broker is a real estate licensee, acting as an agent or in a legally recognized non-agency capacity. All right. So here, okay, and these two terminologies are synonymous, agent or broker. I mean, look at the way it's written. However, acting as an agent, relationship. All right. And that's it. Not a relationship as far as a broker goes. So it could be managing broker. It is important to know that these definitions, because they help you determine the types of duties you owe. So again, it's saying here that it's important for you to basically, again, know and be able to distinguish who's who, what's what. Okay, again, it's able to distinguish who's that, who's that, who's that, and who's that. Why? So that you can better know how to speak to this person. So this person here, you'll speak to them in a certain way. This person here, you'll speak to them in a certain way. Does that make sense? This person here, you'll speak to them in a certain way. And it's on and on, right? So it's important for you to distinguish who's who, what's what. If that makes sense again. So it's important for you to recognize how you will speak to each individual. Understand these terminologies. Who's a client, who's a customer, who's a prospect, who's an agent or broker, okay? Because that way that informs you of how you're going to speak to them and what kind of information you're going to be able to divulge, okay? The customer says, hey, I need to know sensitive information. Are you the client? Yes. If they lie, then that's a different story. But I'm saying if it's not, then you should not be giving out confidential information to anyone but your client, let's say. All right. So this is a quick question here. Clients versus prospect. So here's an example, right? A prospective buyer saw your sign at a listing you represent. Okay. The buyer asked you how low an offer the seller might accept. So here, again, you're getting a call from who? You're getting a call from a buyer, okay? Let me see if I could change the color here a little bit. So you're getting a call. Oops, that didn't work. Yeah, I just leave it like that, I think. So you're getting a call from this party right here, okay? Are you going to give them this kind of information? Of course not, right? So let me go ahead and just put it out there again. So it's a buyer. It's not a client. It's not a broker. It's not an agent, right? It's not a fiduciary. So they're calling you and asking you for confidential information. Ethically, the question is, can you answer this buyer's question and provide a dollar amount? Ethically, the answer is no. Of course not. It's confidential information. All right. So here we go. Now let's go to standards of practice 1 through 5. This part emphasizes, let me just go ahead and show you here. Read it with you. So standard of practice here emphasizes that representing both the buyer and seller in a transaction, all right, dual agency in this case, requires explicit consent from both parties, okay? So both parties have to say, yes, I'm okay with you representing both parties, okay? It's essential to be aware of your state and brokerage guidelines and dual agency. Consider they might be illegal in some states, and certain brokerage may not allow or opt to engage in it. Additionally, standard practice 1 through 6 mandates handling offers objectively and promptly, while others prefer reviewing offers together on a set date. The phrase "as quickly as possible" typically implies presenting offers to the seller on the day of receipt. It's crucial to obtain written consent from the seller if they choose to review offers collectively on a specific date, and this information should be communicated in MLS, okay? So basically what it's saying here, again, is the practice of dual agency, where you're either represent, again, it's being, you're representing, now we're changing color here. Okay, that's cool. So that's you in the middle, and you have here person number 1, and then here's person number 2 that you're representing. Boom. Like my drawing. I used to be better at drawing. And in this case, because they're, working on a transaction, you basically have to be the neutral party and only do communication that is only neutral. Again, you cannot divulge information that is sensitive to that other party, if that makes sense. Things like that, right? You got to make sure that there's other agreements between. And then the other thing they're saying here is you got to treat the offers fairly, right? In other words, be fair. And if this offer, you favor it, you want to make sure that you're presenting it. Sometimes there's sellers that want you to present things at a certain way, a certain time. And so if that's the case, then you want to make sure that you get it in writing, okay, if someone wants to do it. Otherwise, you have basically in here 24 hours to present offers. Okay, so there's no sort of favoritism involved. Like, oh, I like this offer, or I don't like this offer, I'm not going to present it. You have to present all offers. And that's what it's talking about here. And if the seller asks you for something different, then have it in writing at least, so that way you're able to cover your bases. Okay, just a few more minutes here, maybe about 15 more minutes as we're going through this course to take things on here and continue to move forward. All right. So here's another scenario. Offer management, right? Managing offers, right? There's some times when you represent a seller and you have a property that brings multiple offers. Then what are you going to do at that point? Well, what we're going to do is this, right? We're going to manage it. Now, you can have a whole bunch of papers, you're fumbling them around, and you can say, well, oh man, I just have all these offers that came in. What do I do? Here, have this one. Here, have that one. Here, have this one, and this one. Again, competency. So there's got to be a management system. Now, if a brokerage provides one for you, great. I don't sit there and twiddle my thumbs and wait for a brokerage to do something for me. If there needs to be management and organization of this, then I create it out of thin air, right? Some way to be better organized. Anyway, so let's read here what this says about offer management. Tasha represents seller clients Farouk and Noni Saleh. After listing the home at a great price, the offer comes fast and furious. The offers come fast and furious. Tasha immediately presents most of them to the sellers. Already see an infraction here, right? She presents most of them. Really? Just most? That means out of, let's say, 5 offers, she only presents, only these 2. That's not enough. She holds a few back. Why? Why do you hold some back, right? Because she believes that they're either too far below the asking price or the buyers have too many contingencies. So it's her own opinion that keeps her from that. Tasha receives a call from Jonah, a buyer's agent, inquiring about the status of the client's offer. After digging through her emails, Tasha realizes that she didn't even submit their offer to the sellers. In this scenario you read here, and the question is asking us, Tasha realized Jonah's client offer wasn't submitted to the sellers. Likely she thought it was too low of an offer and it contained too many contingencies. Is there an ethical issue here? Yes, no, or you're not sure? The answer is yes, it does have an issue here. All right, because you're missing offers. So presenting offers objectively, all right? Let's talk about here how to present offers objectively according to this, okay? Let me share the screen with you so we can have this going on. Oh, that's cool. Looks like the wind is blowing. What an insult. Tasha's in a difficult situation. She failed to present all offers objectively. Objective presentation of offers means the licensee doesn't influence the client's decision by interjecting emotion, for example. Like, look at this offer. What an insult. Okay, so again here, in a difficult situation, she did not present offers objectively. All right? So objectively, what does that look like, right? Well, a professional way to do this, right, would be to say, okay, this is offer number 1, blah, 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 right? It's offer number 2, blah, 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 blah. It's offer number 3, blah, 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 blah. It's offer number 4. Which one of those would you like to have? And another thing about presenting offers that, is also a great practice, and that is the management of it all. I'm not going to share exactly here how I do it, maybe another video in the future, but I will have a way of communicating this, okay? So that way you're aware. Let's see. 1 second here. Again, I know I'm live streaming, but I'm getting a message real quick here. I need to make sure we get this done. No worries. All right. Anyway, so again, presenting offers. And so there's a lot of factors that goes into one of these offers. In fact, here, I think I have it in one of my folders, but there's an offer. It's a 14-page document, many paragraphs, and many points and many contingencies in an offer. And so I like to present them properly, right? Defining everything. It's not just about the purchase price, and it's not just enough about the net, right? It's many more things. So that's a proper way to present it. So here in this lesson here, they're going to talk about how to present offers objectively. So look, Tasha's in a difficult situation, it says here. She failed to present all offers objectively. Objective presentation of offer means licensees don't influence the client's decision by interjecting emotion. All right, stop right there, right? What are we talking about here? So you can influence a decision by interjecting emotion. See, ethics and the way to present something, it works out here as well, but when you present something and you don't try to favor or steer it, let the decision be made by the seller. Objectively, that means it's not like influenced. You don't grimace. You don't say, "Oh, I don't like this one. That's too bad." You say, "Hey, this is the number one, number two, number three. Which one do you want?" All right. For example, like, look at this offer. What an insult. We should go ahead and shred it and even bother with the response. In this scenario, just as sellers expect to see all offers submitted to their agent, buyers expect their offers to be presented, right? So at least do the ethical thing of doing good by the buyer in this case. Again, you're representing the seller, but at least do good by the buyer and at least present the offer. I mean, if you were looking to buy a house and you offered a number that you felt was good enough, right? A good number. You conferred with your agent, you conferred with the contractor, you did X, Y, Z, all these things, and you put in a serious offer. Why don't you at least have the other person have them say, okay, you know what, here it is. At least have the decency to present it. So that's what we're talking about here as well, is to do so, right, objectively. So instead of withholding the offer from Jonah's clients, Tasha should have presented it to sell along with other offers. It's the right thing to do, it says here. After all, the sellers get to make the decision, not Tasha. All right. So here it is. Let's go ahead and take a look and how they can get it done. All right. So I'm just reading here some things. Practice 1.7 provides additional guidelines for listing brokers submitting offers. Okay. Let me go ahead and just remove that real quick. Let's read it. All right. So when acting as listing brokers, realtors shall continue to submit to the seller landlord all offers and counteroffers until closing or execution of a lease, unless the seller landlord has waived the obligation in writing. Okay. Upon the written request of a cooperating broker who submits an offer, the listing broker shall provide, as soon as practical, a written affirmation to the cooperating broker stating that the offer has been submitted to the seller landlord, or written notification that the seller landlord has waived the obligation to have the offer presented. Realtors should not be obligated to continue to market the property for sale after the offer has been accepted by landlord. Realtors should recommend that sellers obtain the advice of legal counsel prior to accepting of a subsequent offer, except with the acceptance contingent on the termination of pre-existing purchase contract or lease. All right. So it says, suppose Jonah requests in writing a written affirmation that Tasha submitted his client's offer to the seller. Okay. So again, suppose Jonah requests in writing a written affirmation that Tasha submitted his client's offer to the seller. So even though Standards of Practice 1.7, which we just read, directly relates to listing brokers continuing to submit offers up until closing, the part about providing written affirmation still applies to her. All right. And in Standard Practice 1.8, it mirrors the previous one. Realtors acting as agents or brokers of buyers and tenants, okay, shall submit to buyers, tenants all offers, counteroffers until acceptance, but have no obligation to continue to show properties to their clients after an offer has been accepted, unless otherwise agreed upon in writing. Okay, so basically it says here again that this practice of 1.8 says you will present all offers until the point of acceptance. After that, it doesn't have that obligation. Okay, upon written request of the listing broker who submits a counter offer to the buyer's tenant's broker. Okay, so as soon as practical, written affirmation to the listing broker stating that the counter offer has been submitted to the buyer's, or a written notification that the buyer tenants have waived the obligation to have the counter offer presented. Realtors acting as agents or brokers of buyers shall recommend that buyers obtain advice or legal counsel if there's a question as to whether or not a pre-existing contract has been terminated. Okay, so that is Standard Practice 1.8. Apologize for reading that quickly, but just making sure that I'm just moving forward here with that. Okay. All right. A couple little things here. Again, just a few more minutes, and we're going to continue to move forward here of this. Standard Practice 1.9 outlines the importance of safeguarding confidential information even after the termination of a contract. Okay, so let's assume that there was a contract and there was confidential information and it closed. Can you now disclose even after the fact? The point is no, you can't, right? So let's kind of see here the importance of safeguarding confidential information. The obligation of realtors to preserve confidential information. And let me just go ahead and just share with you so you can read it along with me. Even after the termination, right? To preserve confidential information of any agency recognized by law continues after, here it is, after termination of agency. After termination. Yes, that's when it continues, even after. Is there an actual time and date? No. You just let it continue on. That's it. Okay. All right, making sure everything's good. Because if that reveals confidential information or use of confidential information of clients to the disadvantage of clients, or use of confidential information of clients to the realtor's advantage, let's keep all that information confidential. Now, this is the last line. Information concerning latent material defects is not considered confidential information. All right. So this means that under no legal obligation to keep your knowledge of latent defects related to the property confidential. A latent defect is an issue with a property not immediately recognized by the layperson. Just want to see where that, excuse me. All right, just making sure we're not coming over here. Fire truck. Latent defect is an issue with a property not immediately recognized by a layperson, concealed, hidden, or requiring professional evaluation. So again, there's an obligation to keep confidential information confidential even after, but not all information is confidential information, right? There is a need to understand that there's material fact number one, and then here latent defects is an issue with property not immediately recognizable by a layperson, concealed, hidden, or requiring professional evaluation. So there's things that do survive the after effect, okay? All right, now here's an ethical dilemma. Linda represents Fred, a seller. Fred, okay, so here we go. Linda, right, represents a seller. Fred tells her that the house had previously flooded, but he doesn't want to include this on the property disclosure because it might lower his property value. He asks her not to disclose it. Linda knows she must protect her client's interests and maintain his confidential information. So she obeys the request. Not good, right? Why? Because he's asking her to do something unethical, right? The seller's asking anything about to keep information quiet and not share it. But this is material fact. If the seller knows, he must disclose. Okay, I like that one. If the seller knows, he must disclose. She must disclose. The seller knows, the seller must disclose. He asked her not to disclose it. Linda knows that she must protect her client's interests, but Linda, the agent in this case, appears to be confused about latent and material. About confidential information and material fact. Okay, so she decided to obey her client's request. In doing so, is that an ethical violation? Of course it is. Nice work. It says Linda's obligation to her client does not permit her to treat others dishonestly. Known material defects must be disclosed. Again, if a seller knows, seller must disclose. This is an instance where not disclosing is a violation of ethics and the law. Of course, here in the state of Illinois, there's a real property disclosure. You must disclose, according to the state of Illinois law, what you know about a property. Okay, to not do so puts you in risk, and you are violating the law. Okay, all right. So trust through transparency, standards of practice 1 through 13. All right, we're gonna just finish this unit here, and then we'll wrap it up here and continue on at another time. Standard of practice 113, 6 critical disclosures required when entering into buyer and tenant representation agreements. All right, when entering into a buyer-tenant agreement, realtors must advise potential clients of these 6 things, okay? Realtors must advise potential clients of the realtor's company policies regarding cooperation, the fact that broker compensation is not set by law, it's fully negotiable, the amount of compensation to be paid by the client, if any, right? Let them know. The potential for additional or offsetting compensation for other brokers from the seller or landlord or other parties. 5, any potential for the buyer tenant representative to act as a disclosed dual agent. In other words, listing broker, sub-agent, landlord, agent, etc. The possibility that sellers or sellers' representatives may not treat the existence, terms, or conditions of offers as confidential unless confidentiality is required by law, okay? All right, so each of these details ensures that clients understand who represents whom, how compensation works, and what to expect in terms of loyalty and confidentiality, okay? So failing to disclose these points or glossing over them can lead to ethical dilemmas, such as misunderstandings about dual agency, disputes over commission, or accusations of misrepresentation. Man, this is so important for you to know and understand, especially as a licensee, as a realtor, the fact of how to communicate what's in the contract. So that's what I was talking about earlier today. It's not just enough to read books and to attend courses, but also to study the contract. Because again, the wear and tear of life upon your mind and your memory is going to occur. So it's important for you to keep that going and keep it sharp by taking not only these kind of courses, but also the having the system in place where you repeatedly remember these things. Okay. All right. So here's tips for upholding Article 1 and it's supporting standards of practice. Following tips can help you ensure that you can always keep your client's interest in mind. In instances where your client receives 2 offers at the same price, encourage your client to consider all aspects of the offer, such as closing date, contingencies, required closing costs to be paid, etc. When acting as a seller's agent, don't suggest an offering price other than the listed price unless instructed by the seller to do so. Okay. Inform buyers of pertinent and relevant facts that may affect the decision to purchase. Avoid net listing agreements. They create an unavoidable conflict with the client's best interest. Okay. Net listing agreements. Don't do that. It says here, according to this. Next one, as an agent, the best interest of your client must always come before any contemplated interest you or any member of your firm may have in the property. Okay. So again, the best interest of the client must be first before your own. Advise your client promptly if you believe the client's property is overpriced. All right. Advise your client promptly if you believe the client's property is overpriced. So that's another one too that is hard to tell because again, in an environment where there's a lot of competition and a lot of folks trying to get it, the person that would charge the least or say, oh, I'll overprice the property, it's fine, is a problem, right? Now, someone who wants to sell a property after they've been, for example, I had a property, right, that we went on the market grossly overpriced, but I at least let my client know that this property is grossly overpriced and this is what they should expect. Okay, they wanted to do so. They still wanted to move forward and price it that way. So that's what the case was, right? And again, what happened afterwards was that it took a while. All right, but again, it's just about understanding that if the property is overpriced, you have the obligation to tell your client that it is overpriced. All right, because again, it's fiduciary duties. It's looking out for their best interest, even though you want the most amount of money. At the same time, you also got to let them know, hey, this is not going to bring you an offer, and that could eat up some time and maybe even lose out on some of these buyers out there. Be aware of pending or enacted changes, I should say, in the zoning ordinances that may affect the market value or use of property you've listed. All right, so we've done this, and now we're going to just wrap it up here in this lesson number 1. Okay, so yeah, we did this lesson number 1 and 2. We did this one today, so thank you so much for watching. I hope that you learned something from this. I hope to just catch you again in the field as we are making this happen here and there. This was just a quick little bonus I wanted to throw out here because this is related to real estate. And even though on my YouTube channel I do talk about properties, I do talk about market reports, and I do tours and everything else in market reports. Like I said, this is also very important to know as far as the market goes, and even consumers in the future that watch this video understand that what goes behind the scenes. And it's not just to say I can help you with this and that. It's not just enough to say what the property is worth in the future. You also have to know, hey, the agent you're working with, your digital realtor, is aware of the fiduciary duties. And there's a lot of stuff going on. You only see the tip of the iceberg in most videos, but the bulk of it all comes in these moments when there's nobody in the office, when I'm here, reading and studying these materials, showing you my book, showing you my paperwork, showing you my thought process when it comes to all these aspects of the real estate world. So yeah, like I said here, go ahead and listen to the last minute or two of this previous minute, and just spells out what we do, why I do what I do. Okay, so anyway, thank you again for watching this. If you like what you saw today, make sure to like it, share it if you want, and yeah, look forward to working with you. Okay, all right, take care. See you the next time. Of course, let's have a good